Head overseas now, where more details are emerging about the thwarted Al-Qaeda plot to blow up a US-bound plane using an underwear bomb. North America correspondent Jane Cowan joins us now from Washington. Good morning, Jane. How much more information do we now have about this plot and how it was uncovered?
Well, not a lot. It is being reported here, though, that the plot was uncovered by an inside source who was apparently working as a spy for the CIA, and that person then managed to escape to Saudi Arabia with the bomb, and that's how this was all uncovered. Separately, it's also being reported that an anonymous source from inside the Yemeni government is saying that that country knew nothing about all of this. And it's also being suggested here in the US that there is some connection between the thwarting of this plot and the drone strike that killed over the weekend another senior member of Al-Qaeda also in Yemen, that somehow that was all part of the same investigation. But the FBI is said to be examining now the bomb. What the US officials aren't saying, though, is what has become of the would-be suicide bomber and whether or not there is any concern that there are others involved in this who are still at large.
And what's the Obama administration saying about this?
Well, surprisingly little, really. Essentially today, various members of the Obama administration, high-level members, are being pressed to explain why they were saying as recently as last week to the American public that they knew of no credible specific threat of exactly this type, timed to coincide with that anniversary of Osama bin Laden's death. And specifically, the top counter-terrorism advisor, John Brennan, to Barack Obama, who was the main person giving this message to the public last week, has been asked, you know, how could you say this, given this is exactly when all of this appears to have been unfolding? He maintains that it was an accurate statement at the time because the US was confident that it had this plot in hand and there was no real ever direct threat to the public. And also the Secretary of Homeland Security, Janet Napolitano, was asked this question at a separate event that she happened to be appearing at, and she took the same line but did acknowledge that the message that was given by the Obama administration last week in relation to current threats was a very carefully worded one. But essentially, the Obama administration is trying to play down this threat, play it up as a success of intelligence, of an international cooperation between the countries to thwart this plot. And the US Secretary of State Hillary Clinton has been really acknowledging that it is a sign of the ongoing determination of Al-Qaeda. Let's have a listen.
As the White House said, the device did not appear to pose a threat to the public air service, but the plot itself indicates that these terrorists keep trying. They keep trying to devise more and more perverse and terrible ways to kill innocent people. And it's a reminder as to why we have to remain vigilant at home and abroad in protecting our nation and in protecting friendly nations and peoples like India and others.
The US Secretary of State Hillary Clinton there. Now, the news has also been coming through overnight about the death of the author Maurice Sendak. Jane, how big a loss is that to children's literature?
Well, it's huge. He is definitely a great of the genre. He died at the age of 83 from complications of a stroke in Connecticut. And he's certainly regarded as someone who turned the whole genre of children's books on its head by really giving them something different to what they'd been used to, and giving voice to really the psychological intensity of what it was like to be a kid and to be growing up. And of course, his most famous book is Where the Wild Things Are, which is that fantastic story of the naughty boy Max who's sent to his room without dinner as punishment and then dreams up this whole world filled with monsters and goes on a trip of imagination. And he certainly has some very high-profile fans here in America. He was on the Colbert Report with the comedian Stephen Colbert as recently as January, and in that chat he really let loose on everything from his thoughts on the state of children's literature today, which he said was abysmal, to even the then Republican presidential hopeful, Karina, Newt Gingrich, who he described as a renowned idiot, someone who was so hopelessly gross and vile that it was hard to take him seriously, and suggested that Americans should stop doing so. But aside from his writing, he was extremely interesting as a person. He's someone who came out in his later years as a gay man, and then for all the lack of sentimentality that his writing for kids was known for, he became quite reflective in his older years and quite focused on his mortality. He talked about how he would cry his way all the way to his grave because he was missing all the people that he'd outlived. And one of his most high-profile fans, you'd have to say, was the US President Barack Obama, who made a habit of giving these very animated readings of where the wild things are at the annual Easter festivities at the White House. Let's have a look at that.
And when he came to the place where the wild things are, they roared their terrible roars. And they gnashed their terrible teeth.
You're disturbing Bo. He's frightened.
Till Max said, "Be still," and tamed them with the magic trick of staring into all their yellow eyes without blinking once, and they were frightened and called him the most wild thing of all. Everybody give me your stare, your stare. Just, you got to stare right into, right, don't blink. Don't blink. It's pretty scary, huh?
That's the President Barack Obama, Jane Cowan in Washington. Thank you.
Gee, I'm scared. I'll pay that gnashing of the teeth by Barack Obama. He does it well. He's had lots of experience as well as a parent reading Morris Sendak's various books to his kids over the years.
And I think we'll have to wait a little while longer because you don't want to go up against Barack Obama.
No, I was promising to read...
You'll read more for us a little later in the program.
But who can compete with Barack Obama, really? Reading a book, running a country, being the most powerful man in the world.